The use of social media has provided many instances of violations against the Eighth Commandment, as many people present false versions of their lives online, and others engage in cyberbullying through false accusations or spreading rumors. A very sad example of how the Eighth Commandment can be violated through false accusations, slander, and gossip, both inside and outside the church, is the case of Cardinal George Pell. Cardinal Pell was accused of sexual abuse and convicted in Australia in 2018. But after serving over a year in prison, his conviction was unanimously overturned by the High Court of Australia in 2020. The court ruled that there was a significant possibility that an innocent person had been convicted, meaning the evidence did not support the guilty verdict. The accusations against Pell were based on the testimony of a single alleged victim, with no corroborating evidence. Many experts and observers pointed out the impossibility of the alleged events occurring as described. The mainstream media, particularly in Australia, relentlessly portrayed Pell as guilty from the beginning, often ignoring exculpatory evidence. Some outlets ran misleading headlines and refused to fairly report on the weaknesses in the prosecution's case. Many people, including Catholics, assumed Pell was guilty before his trial even began. Public opinion was shaped by decades of scandal in the church, leading many to believe accusations without due process. Some within the church failed to defend Pell publicly, perhaps out of fear of backlash. Others used the accusations as an opportunity to attack him due to his traditional stance on doctrine and liturgy. Even after his acquittal, some continued to refer to Pell as a criminal, ignoring the High Court's ruling. This is a form of calumny, persisting and spreading falsehoods about someone even after the truth is revealed. The case of Cardinal Pell reminds us of the importance of justice, due process, and protecting reputations. False accusations not only destroy the accused, but also harm real victims of abuse by undermining trust and genuine claims. Cardinal Pell's case becomes even more concerning when we consider the possible connection between his legal troubles and his work exposing financial corruption in the Vatican. Before his legal battles, Pell was appointed by Pope Francis in 2014 as the head of the newly created Secretariat for the Economy, tasked with cleaning up the Vatican's finances. He quickly began uncovering major financial irregularities, including unaccounted funds. Pell found that the Vatican had hundreds of millions of euros that had not been properly recorded. Resistance to reform. Some Vatican officials, particularly in the Secretariat of State, opposed Pell's financial oversight. He attempted to implement stricter controls, which threatened those benefiting from shady financial dealings. Conflict with Cardinal Bischu. Pell clashed with Cardinal Angelo Bischu, who was later implicated in financial scandals, including misuse of church funds. Pell was removed from his financial role in 2017, just as he was making progress in uncovering corruption. Shortly afterward, the Australian authorities brought charges against him for alleged abuse dating back to the 1990s. There has been a question of whether Vatican insiders, who stood to lose power and money, may have played a role in pushing for Pell's downfall. While there's no direct proof that the Vatican orchestrated his prosecution, the timing is highly suspicious. Bischu, Pell's biggest opponent in Vatican finances, was later stripped of his rights as a cardinal and put on trial for corruption. lending weight to Pell's previous warnings. The Vatican initially took a neutral stance, saying it respected Australian law. However, they were content to allow Pell to be sidelined. During Pell's absence, financial reform stalled, and some of his policies were rolled back. When Pell was finally acquitted in 2020, he returned to Rome and continued warning about Vatican corruption. He spoke out against financial mismanagement and was vocal in his criticism of Vicu's dealings. Cardinal Pell died in January of 2023 after complications from hip surgery. There were many suspicious findings in regard to his death. Whether or not the Vatican had a direct role in Pell's prosecution, it is clear that powerful figures within the church had strong motives to remove him. His case highlights the dangers of standing up for truth within the church at this time, when corruption is infiltrated up to the highest level. It also serves as a reminder that the eighth commandment is violated not only through direct lies, but also through silent complicity and injustice. The McCarrick scandal is also a prime example of cover-up and deception, and is another powerful example of how violations of the Eighth Commandment have played out within the church. It involves deceit, cover-ups, and the destruction of reputations, all of which illustrate how falsehood and silence can allow grave injustice to persist. Cardinal Theodore McCarrick was a highly influential American prelate, serving as Archbishop of Washington, D.C., and a key figure in Vatican diplomacy. He was well connected in both political and ecclesiastical circles and played a major role in church affairs. For decades, McCarrick was known to have engaged in immoral behavior, particularly with young seminarians and young priests. These allegations were largely dismissed or ignored, even though many in the church hierarchy were aware of them. Reports of McCarrick's misconduct surfaced as early as the 1990s, yet he continued to rise through the ranks. Some bishops and Vatican officials knew he pressured seminarians to share beds with him at his beach house, but remained silent. Financial statements are quietly made with some of his victims. Financial settlements were quietly made with some of his victims, but no public action was taken against him. McCarrick presented himself as a champion of social justice, vocations, and church diplomacy, while secretly living in grave sin. He was praised and promoted despite ongoing concerns about his behavior. Even though Pope Benedict XVI reportedly placed restrictions on McCarrick, telling him to live a life of prayer and penance, those restrictions were never enforced. Under Pope Francis, McCarrick regained influence and was involved in diplomatic efforts, particularly in the Vatican's controversial deal with China. It was not until 2019 that he was stripped of his cardinalate and later laicized. Bishops and Vatican officials who knew about McCarrick's actions but remained silent enabled his continued rise to power. Their failure to act was a grave form of deception. McCarrick was allowed to maintain a public image of holiness and integrity despite his secret sins. Those who tried to expose McCarrick were dismissed or discredited. In 2016, Richard Sipe, a psychotherapist and expert on clerical sexual abuse, presented Cardinal Robert McElroy, who has now been appointed Archbishop of Washington, D.C., with allegations concerning misconduct by several priests and bishops, including then Cardinal Theodore McCarrick. However, his response to these allegations was certainly inadequate. Additionally, during his tenure in San Diego, the diocese filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy amid numerous sexual abuse claims, a move which seemed to prioritize institutional protection over victim support. Given these concerns, parallels have been drawn between McElroy's actions and the broader clerical abuse scandals, including those involving McCarrick. While McElroy has not been accused of personal misconduct, his perceived inaction and the subsequent appointment to a prominent position seem to indicate a continuation of the Church's failure to adequately address sexual abuse. Cardinal Donald Wuerl served as Archbishop of Washington, D.C. from 2006 until his resignation in 2018. He resigned amid allegations of mishandling sexual abuse cases during his tenure in Pittsburgh. A grand jury report accused Wuerl of covering up instances of abuse, leading to significant loss of trust among the faithful. He was succeeded by Cardinal Wilton Gregory, who served under McElroy until McElroy was appointed in January 6, 2025. The actions and inactions of church leaders like Cardinals McElroy and Wuerl, particularly regarding the handling of sexual abuse allegations, can be viewed as violations of the Eighth Commandment by failing to address accusations transparently and protect victims. They compromise the Church's integrity and trustworthiness. Such behavior not only harms those directly affected, but also undermines the moral authority of the Church. In light of this scandal and other scandals in the Church, let me state clearly as a shepherd that truth must always be upheld, even when it is inconvenient or damaging to reputations. Silence in the face of known evil is itself a form of false witness. As St. John Chrysostom stated, it is better to be punished for having spoken the truth than to be condemned for having kept silent.